Gamers! We are reviewing a game that's been on our shelf for a while and I've been eager to play it. And today it is Star Saga. And before I get into talking more about the game, I just want to highlight a nice new shirt. Lovely Valentine's Day present from my wife. Thank you very much. The first piece of clothing I got was from the Cyberbard. You should check out his channel. We'll definitely link him in the video description. Now, back to talking about the game. Star Saga is designed by Stuart Gibbs and published by Mantic Games. With that being said, I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who's going to tell you more about the game itself.
So this is a cooperative game that plays 1 to 5 players in 30 to 90 minutes per session. And it's intended for ages 14 and above.
I think we've gotten it played in about, what, 60 minutes with the missions that we've played for each of them?
It hasn't been under 60 minutes for us.
No, I don't think we hit the 90-minute mark yet, though.
No.
And what do you think about the 14 and above? Could you play with someone younger, or? I
think 14 and above is a good age for this. Not necessarily because of the content. I mean, there's a little bit.
Yeah, it is. There are definitely some more tactical rules to this than other dungeon crawlers, and you'll see that when you get into the how to play. Now, just to tell you a little bit about the game, what you're going to be doing. This is set in Mantic's Warpath universe. And you're playing mercenaries that have been hired by a nefarious individual named Blaine to infiltrate the base on Eris and recover some stolen technology. You're going to be building a map and then moving through the map while either an AI-controlled Nexus or player-controlled Nexus tries to stop your mercenaries from beating the mission. And I think that about covers it.
I think so.
All right, with that being said, we're going to grab our drinks, grab our best friend.
We're going to take it to the table.
Most definitely. I'm really happy that we're finally getting out a sci-fi dungeon crawl. I know we've had some fun with Imperial Assault, and we do have some other dungeon crawlers, but they're more fantasy or zombie.
But I also think there's a theme here. This is the second game in a row that you have us play where we're bad guys or not real, true definition heroes. You feeling a little bit like your bad side needs to come out?
Maybe.
I guess so.
You like it when I'm bad.
No, I'm not touching that one.
Now we're going to take a look at the components for Star Saga. We're going to move, well, a little bit all over the place. Let's start with the components that I don't currently have on camera. Now, there are 2 books that come with Star Saga. You have the rule book, and then the Eris contract, which is the scenario book for the base game. You've got a nice reference guide here that'll take you through everything that you need, and also just show you what pages the more detailed versions of the rules are on. You're going to want to definitely keep both of these handy, especially if you're playing the 1 versus many. The Nexus player is going to need this book. Now, the other items that I don't have on here are the larger tiles. Just didn't have enough room. As you can see, we get some tiles that are set up like this. All the tiles are double-sided. Some longer rooms, some thicker rooms, wider, and then even some standard just square size rooms, as well as all of the little pieces that we have over here are also components that you're going to be using to make up the board. This here is a gun emplacement, or as you can see on the other side, just a regular section of the board. That being said, I'm going to jump over now and let's take a look at the heroes. Now, what I've got going on here is we've got the captain, Erica Delinsky, Francesco the Devil Salvaggio, I believe, sorry, and Kirby. Now, Julie and I have been playing, so you can see that there are some XP already on some of the characters. You only get XP after you complete the tutorial, and you can see the miniatures for each of these characters in nice detail. So that was Erica, this is Francesco, and here we've got Kirby. Now the other 3 characters that come with the base game are up here. We've got Olgan Helker, Elise, and Wrath. Now, Olgan also gets some deployable equipment, as you can see by the sentry guns. He also has force fields. I don't have them on camera, but you can see the cards for them here and the stats for each of those items. The force field I guess the best way to call them is miniatures. They are very small, and I just didn't want to take them out. I feel like they are very easy to lose. Let's take a look at the character minis. So there is Elise. Here we've got Wrath, who unfortunately has a little bit of a droopy sword. And then we've got Ogan right here. Next, we have your bosses. But before that, let's take a quick look at some of the other components around the heroes. We've got just these color identifiers, which will be used to tell when your mercenary is activated or, can be activated or has already acted. Now the colors are important for when you're playing with an artificial Nexus, so keep that in mind. We've got the symbol for looting a down mercenary and just another token that you may be, you've got down mercenary with loot, and then I believe this is after he's been looted. You'll see more about that when we talk about the how to play. A set of skill cards, skills that your mercenaries can acquire by either paying the cost or leveling up. And then the level up tokens, which your characters will gain once they hit 14 experience. Now let's take a look at the enemies. Here we've got the bosses, and we haven't really played against them yet, so I can't tell you much about them. We've got Dr. Lucas Coiner, Organic Data Storage Unit X02, Guard Commander Graves. Their minis are right here. I'll pick them up in a second. The one thing I did want to note is that X02 also has these special psychic power cards that you can see right here. Easy, you can tell it's him from the background. It reminds me a little bit of the alien from Independence Day. Let's take a look at the miniatures. Once again, very nice minis for the characters. Dr. Lucas, X02, Commander Graves. Here we've got a mini for explosives and then just the damage tokens, which work for minions as well as for the bosses. Then the last two bosses we have are the Aberration and Enforcer, codename Monarch. I'm not going to say the other part of it. You can see the Aberration mini here, and he is a large miniature. Rules for that are in the rulebook. And then we've got Monarch, and it was, in my opinion, one of the coolest miniatures. Actually, he was a mercenary. Now let's take a look at the minions. Now each type of minion comes with two miniatures. I've split up the cards just so we'll be able to see them. We've got the Plague Victim and the Corporation Ranger. You've got one regular one and then one with a flamethrower. Different stats for each. The flamethrower is important because its template can let you destroy scenery. You can see the miniatures here, the Plague Victims, and then the minis here for the Rangers. I'll put those back. Down below are the respawn points and then the starting point for the mercenaries. And with regards to these minions up here, we've got the defense emplacement, which corresponds to that over there. Then security guards, lab technician, and the corporate marine. And their minis are placed in that same order with the two lab technicians here. As you can see, I'll pick up the two security guards. And then we have the corporate marines, not as tough looking as the Rangers. Next, what I've done is I've taken out 4 of the dice. The blue are the defense die, and the red are the attacking dice. You'll notice that they have corresponding values. The reason for that is one of these can only be blocked by a corresponding value. However, a defense value of this exclamation mark can block all values of dice, just like this solid one can block these 3 values of dice. Well, not the blank, obviously. And the one that has the hole in it and then the hole in the middle can only be blocked by, can't only be blocked. This value can only block this, not the other 2. It's fairly straightforward. Next, we've got the different items. There is loot that you can purchase during your off time and also discover while you are searching through different pieces of scenery as you complete the scenario. We even have the rare items, which may be found in certain scenarios if I'm not mistaken. Haven't got that far into the game yet, but can also be bought for the required credits just like regular loot. And then finally, there are the special mission bonuses, which only show up in certain missions. The Nexus player, or will tell you, or you'll find it in the Eris contract book. Now, these are the rangefinder templates. Now, if you're trying to draw a line of sight, unobstructed line of sight would be from the center of your mini to the character you're trying to shoot at. You've got long range, short range, and then the flamethrower template as well, which can hit groups of enemies. That's fairly important. Next, we'll just take a look at the scenery. I'm not going to pick it all up. We've got the doors, large and small, large cabinets, 2 crates, just different kinds of terminals that can be found in the game. Which I do like is how there's a lot of variety. Everything looks different. We've got the weapons rack right here. Just a large cylinder, a large container. We then have the 2 tables. There is another kind of table as well. Like I said, I didn't take out all of these pieces of scenery, just enough to give you a taste. These 2 tokens right here are related to the security on the doors. The symbol here means that it cannot be opened unless something specific has happened. Otherwise, this would take 2 successes, 1 success to open the door. And that's done by hacking a terminal. Don't worry, we'll talk more about it in the how to play. And lastly, we've got the Nexus cards. Now, the Nexus cards are divided up into different levels. I'll flip it over quickly. We've got the special event cards, which will be added based on the scenario. And then goes from level 3 cards, which are red, level 2, and then finally level 1. If you're playing with an artificial Nexus, this green part is the important part of the card. You'll also be looking at the reinforcement value depending when you draw it, and who the target will be. In this case, you saw the green symbol, the green hero. There you have it. We've taken a look at the components for Star Saga. Now we're going to come back and teach you how to play the game. Now we're going to teach you how to play Star Saga. I've skipped over the setup because it changes every mission. Essentially what you're going to be doing is selecting your mercenaries, laying out the tiles, and setting up the Nexus cards based on the instructions in the book. What we're going to do is do a breakdown of the mercenaries, what they can do, followed by then what would happen on the Nexus player's turn. In this case, we've got Captain Erica Dolinsky, whose skill is the laser assault rifle. Essentially, that's her starting weapon she always has. This is her feat that may be used 1 time per mission. You've got the experience track here. This is her skills. Sorry, these are her skills. Here we've got speed, how fast she can move, her ranged attack value, close-up assault attack, so getting up in close and personal, the defense, and then her tech value. Now, on her turn, Erica needs to move because she's here. But it's important to note that during a mercenary's turn, they may either move and do an action or just do an action. You can't move and shoot or shoot and move. That is very important. Now, in this case, Erica would move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She could get here, or better yet, take advantage of cover by moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's important to note is that when you're trying to move diagonally, such as between 2 miniatures like this, anytime it's obstructed, you're not able to move diagonally, such as like around this corner. Now, let's take a look at shooting, because that is obviously what she's going to do. What's important to note is that miniatures have a front-facing arc, which is the 6 squares in front of them, and a rear-facing arc, the 3 squares behind them. If something attacks them from the rear-facing arc, whether it's shooting or close assault, they suffer a -1 die penalty. So make sure that as you move your character, you decide what direction they're facing, which has to be one of the sides of the square that they're in. Now, in the case of shooting, in order for a character to be considered not in cover, you must be able to draw a line to each corner of the square unobstructed. As a lab tech is hidden away back there, were not able to draw a straight line to each corner unobstructed, meaning they have cover and gain 1 bonus die. But as you can see, we can easily shoot them. We will then take our 4 attack dice, and we use the long one because she has a long range weapon. We take the 3 defense die, and we are going to roll them simultaneously. And we compare them. Now in this case, there was no defense, meaning we take a look at the lab tech, has a health of 2, defense of 1. I actually rolled 1 too many. I should have only rolled 2. Doesn't really matter in this case. We've scored 3 hits, defeating the lab technician. Now I'm not going to move them off the board just yet. I want to use them for another example. But that is what happens. If, for example, the lab technician had rolled these 2 dice, that would have meant they successfully blocked these two of the weaker successes, but not the stronger success. If this had been a higher level success like that, even with these 2, only this 1 would be blocked, meaning they would still have been defeated. Now that is shooting. If, for example, Eric had been able to get close to do a close assault, at this point they're not in cover, you would roll their close assault value, which is 3, versus the 1, and once again they would have easily been defeated. Now, that is the shooting and close assault actions, and just for the sake of keeping things clean, I will remove the miniature, meaning they were defeated. Other actions that a mercenary may take during their turn are things such as looting, which if you are adjacent to some scenery, you may roll a die, and then depending on what you get, you will draw a loot card. Now in this case, we rolled 0, meaning nothing. You can remove the crate, or leave it for scenery for cover, but if I'm not mistaken, it is removed because you did not find anything. Now, if you'd rolled either this symbol or this one, you would draw a loot card. Just place it there. If you rolled the exclamation mark symbol, you would then draw 2 loot cards. And surprise, they were both med packs. That is one thing that you're able to do on your turn. The other option would be interfacing with this terminal. Now, when you interface with the terminal, you may use it to perform different actions. They are listed in the Ares contract book, whatever it is. Also, the firewall level, meaning the defense level as to what you're trying to hack, is listed as well. In this case, we are trying to open the door, which has a security lock of 1. Now, in the book, it does tell us the firewall level is 1. Her tech skill is 2. We would roll 2 dice against 1 firewall. And then each success would go towards unlocking the door. As we only have 1 here, it would successfully be unlocked. Then another action a mercenary may do is when they are adjacent to the door, spend the action to unlock the door. And those are the actions that your mercenary can do on their turn. Another action could be looting a downed mercenary, picking up their equipment to make sure that it is not lost. There are a few other things that you will find in the rulebook. This is really just to give you the basics. And those are really the actions that a mercenary player has on their turn. Just remember, once again, if you do not move before shooting, you're not able to move. And with that being said, I'm just going to put this back here. We're now going to move on to the artificial Nexus turn. So keep it right here, and we'll be right back. And we are now on to the Nexus player's turn. I've just added some reinforcements in case that we need it. And we are going to explain how to use the artificial Nexus. But one thing that I neglected to mention, I just want to point out, with regards to movement, this applies to Nexus minions as well as mercenaries. You cannot move through an existing model. Keep that in mind, and don't forget, when you enter into the front arc of an enemy, these first 5 spaces, your movement stops. Also, with regards to the dice, just pretty straightforward. These are the highest values. This is the next highest, and they cancel each other out. For example, the highest value cancels the highest value. This would be canceled out by this shield, and then this one by this one. I'm just covering that quickly. I did review that in the components. I believe not everyone saw it. So just a quick recap. Now we are going to move on and get started with our Nexus player. Oh, let's just stand up the crate. Now, how are they going to attack Captain Erica Delinsky? And before I neglect to mention it, there are activation tokens for your mercenaries. And these are important later on in the game because of certain abilities that become available. But I just don't happen to have that out right now, as there's only one mercenary. Not really all that important. In any case, moving on, the Nexus player. The first thing we do is we draw a card. Now this special ability comes into play and remains in play. So in this case, no terminals may be used, and it will be discarded at the start of the next Nexus phase. Now, other things that we may get, for example, would be take any minions waiting at a single reinforcement point and place them at another one, meaning if we had a guy that was here, we could move him here. Not all that useful in this first scenario, but can be very annoying later on. And then if you have questions as to how to use some of the cards, they have a clarification here. So for example, with this one, you get to play the bonus actions, and you would be able to draw 2 cards. Now, in the case of this scenario, what we're going to use is this top card, this one right here, Stealthy Advance, because it's just going to make things a little more interesting. Now, if we draw this one, a minion may move. That means the minion's going to gain an extra movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now they can then move again, getting them directly in front of Captain Erica Delinsky. It is then their turn to make an attack, and the minion cards are exactly like the mercenary cards: movement, attack, close-up attack, armor, so defense, and then their health. We also have the stats on their weapon. Here's a laser carbine, which is a long-range weapon. Quite clear, he can definitely shoot her. Now we would take Erica's 3 defense die and his 2 attack die. We roll it up and see what happens. And in this case, it's not very pretty, actually. Erica is going to take a total of 2 damage. Now, I'm just going to grab the damage tokens. And then while I'm grabbing the damage tokens, I want to explain what happened when the character becomes wounded. Now, after these 3 green spots are filled, characters become wounded, and they take penalties to their dice, -1 to all of their attack dice, and -1 to their defense die. Now, we will place the tokens onto Captain Delinsky, and I have found the mercenary tokens just to show you guys. Make that clear. So you've got the active side of it, and then the activated side, meaning they have taken their turn. So that's how you're going to be using the Nexus player. Now, we need to talk about reinforcement, essentially, and that guy shouldn't have been there. Getting these guys onto the board. What minions are you going to be reinforcing? Well, that's typically told at the start of the scenario, so what's available. At the start of the game, there's only the lab technician and security guard. Other minions will come into play later on. Same thing with the bosses. They're shown to be available by the level. Now what happens is you draw your second Nexus card and you take only the value that is listed here. This is the reinforcement value telling you what you're going to be placing on the board. Now what I did neglect to mention with the first card, it doesn't really matter as there's only one hero, or mercenary in this case. This symbol right here tells you what you're going to be attacking. So in the case, it would tell you to focus on the mercenary with the gray symbol, as there is no mercenary with a gray symbol. In this case, well, it was actually yellow, but we'll just imagine it was the gray one. If she's got the yellow one, you just attack whatever mercenary is available. If you look on page 16 of the rulebook, everything about playing the Artificial Nexus is detailed. What the symbol means besides the ones that refer to just a specific mercenary. and the minion activation table to give you an idea as to what they will be doing. Don't forget this, it does definitely come in handy. Now, in the case of the starting scenario, there are no base reinforcement values. Now, what are the reinforcement and activation values? Well, we'll take a look at the mission. In this case, mission A, Lone Operator, you can see there is 1 minion activation, and it's a special value for reinforcements, meaning you're only using the ones on the card. As you get to later missions, so we'll just jump ahead, not try to spoil anything. As you can see with mission 1, you go up to 2 and 2. So in the case of that one, you would always be spawning 2 guys. Well, can we spawn the security guard like I did? Actually, we're not able to, because the security guard has a respawn value of 2, and the card that we drew has a reinforcement value, I said respawn, I meant reinforcement, of only 1. Meaning the only thing we can put out is a lab technician. Now, if we happen to draw a card that had a reinforcement value of 2, we would then be able to place the security guard, or if we ever draw one that has a value of 3, we always start with the highest and then the next one until we've gone through all of the reinforcement values. That would mean we'd be able to place both of them out there. And after that, we'll say that the Nexus turn has been resolved. It would now be our mercenary's turn, and so on and so forth. The game would continue until the objective has been completed and the mercenaries have won. Now, one thing I just want to cover is the rules for experience very quickly. There is a nice table on the back of the book that will detail experience. You can also find it in the campaign section of the book right here. And these rules will explain to you how to play a campaign. You are able to play Star Saga as a one-off or in a campaign format. Now, with that being said, I'm going to head off and join my fellow mercenary, Julie, and we will then give you guys a review of the game. So keep it right here. Star Saga, what did you think of the game?
Well, it looked interesting. It looked like something that could be fun. I like miniatures, moving, dungeon crawls. I like that. I like cooperative. So that was interesting, and sci-fi version of it. But I have to come right out and say that I was bored with this game. And you asked me why I was bored when I told you after we played it. I think compared to other dungeon crawls that we've played, this one feels slow and clunky, I think would be my description of it.
And not to just cut you off, what I do want to mention is we have played together 4 missions. I played the first mission in the tutorial, and I'll talk about the tutorial because that's a whole other thing in a few minutes. We got through all 3 tutorials, first one just myself, and the first 2 missions. Now, go ahead. Just in case people have had some different experience with the game, they might understand where we're coming from if they sort of had the same feeling at the start of the game.
So one of the things I would say is that the AI used to play cooperatively, so not with a player playing the Nexus, but an artificial intelligence, like turning the cards, I don't feel works as well as other versions that we've used. It's kind of difficult to understand the rules and the activations, and I think we figured it out the last time that we played, but
definitely made a few mistakes. We played it mostly right, but the
there
rule book itself is definitely.
I was still asking questions about why we're doing that and what. So there was a lot of that I found. I also found that it felt like there was something missing every time, and it didn't feel like we were fighting anything really horrible. Even the boss didn't feel that difficult. I mean, yes, you were powered up a little bit, but you killed it in one fell swoop, and I'm like, whatever. I don't even get to take a whack at him. Contrary to others where we've played in Descent, where we kind of all need to gang up, and even some of the mini bosses are much more difficult. I also didn't like the board setup. I didn't like that it moved around so much compared to others that we've done. That's small little pieces, and you're not supposed to build in advance. And it just, to me, doesn't play as easily as Descent or Imperial Assault. I think
or
others,
even Zombicide and Massive
or
Darkness.
yes, but I mean, to me, the first two I mentioned probably are my favorite of those. I enjoy Zombicide as well.
And we just finally got some experience with Folklore, and one thing I would say, a sci-fi version of Folklore would be awesome. Just saying, keep it in mind, Greenbrier.
So for me, I don't know. Maybe I don't know how many missions are there for this.
There was a total of 12 missions in all, including the 3 tutorials. So we have another 7 missions left in the game. One thing that I will say, and I get your point of why it doesn't feel that threatening, and it's going to come to a negative that I'm going to talk about in a minute, about just like sort of the overall structure in the game. But we weren't really fighting anything dangerous. The first few missions are kind of designed to let you build up your character and get the flow for the game going. But looking at the rules and mentioning Imperial Assault and other games that are one versus many, there is no way for the Nexus player to win in Star Saga. When you're playing the Nexus player, you are very much playing a dungeon master. What will happen is if you beat the mercenaries will retain all experience that they gained during their mission, and then they will go ahead and replay it. And I think that's one of the reasons why you feel that it's maybe not as threatening or some clunkiness, because unlike Imperial Assault, when we played with the Cyberbard as the Imperial player, there's some negative consequences when he wins. He gets to pick what missions we go and he gets to try to power up. There really doesn't seem to be those options for the Nexus player. Now, if I happen to miss that in the rulebook, someone please let me know in the comments below and I will add something in the pinned comments of the video, but I really didn't see anything like that in the book.
I mean, from my perspective as well, this doesn't seem, this rule book or the way that this is laid out doesn't seem to be that well laid out, because compared to other games that we've played, we got through 4 different missions and you were still figuring things out, which adds to the negative factor, I think, for me. I'm not going to want to take this to the table again, just because we've already played 4 and I'm like, yeah, okay, so maybe it's like one of those, for me, it's that critical mass, like in a book. If a book doesn't pull me in by 30% of the way through the book, I'm not going to waste my time on it. I'm going to put it down. I'm going to move on to a better book. That's how I feel about this game. I feel like it had the potential. I tried, but right now, it's not calling me back. I'd rather play another game. Now, if this was the only game that I'd bought and I'd saved up for it and I bought it and I didn't have this, then I might see it through. But for us and what we do, and the fact that we're seeing so many new games, for me, there's so many others that are better than this. I'm not that interested in trying to figure out if it gets that much better at level 6. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I totally understand that. And the one thing I will say, so let's talk about the tutorial. And the one thing I'm going to say, the tutorial is garbage. This is one of the worst tutorials I have ever played in a game. Now, first off, I want to explain why. When you're going through the rulebook says it's going to take you through a tutorial. However, not all the information is contained in the rulebook for the tutorial. It really just kind of provides you with some examples, then just spits out the rest of the rules for the entire campaign. And some of the key information is actually in the Eris contract book that will tell you more about the number of activations and respawns that you're going to have in the tutorial mission. And that was just confusing, kind of off-putting. We wanted to review the game, so I'm trying to get it to the table. And just sort of the phrasing and the way the rule book is laid out with bits and pieces kind of scattered about the artificial nexus, it doesn't flow well. And like the game itself, it doesn't flow well. And the tiles are garbage. As you said, they move around. I'm sorry, I know that there's going to be a mission generator. The fact that the tiles aren't interlocking is not supposed to be a negative, but there are so many small tiles. The maps are so big and nothing is lettered or numbered. Building a map is a gigantic pain in the butt and takes a serious amount of time. When we're comparing things that we've played in 2017, 2018, 2019, it's been done better. And it's either been done better in a book that says take out these tiles, or just having larger tiles. I get why it's really cool with all the corridors. We're moving around a facility. I like that, but it doesn't.
They could have done it differently. I mean, there's one corridor that was a bunch of little tiny tiles, and they kept moving. It's also the production quality of the corrugate. You know, for the actual tiles they're not as nicely produced, I would say, as others.
Not as detailed. It's very gray and metal.
But it's also thin, and the card stock used for the cards, I think it's one of the first things I said to you. I said, wow, these are thinner than playing cards. You know, like
the card stock is not the best. So component quality in terms of, I would say,
all of the minis, the tables.
No, I was gonna say the board and the. We'll talk about the tables in a second because that's one of the stories I was gonna say. So, component qualities, cards and board, I give like a C. It is definitely the bare minimum with regards to production quality. The table miniatures are all bent, and you definitely need to use the boiling water trick to try to get them to snap back into position. Other than the tables, though, in terms of the miniatures and Rast's sword, which I showed in the components, are all very well detailed and nicely done. And I have to give them credit. The miniatures are very good, and I gotta give, like, you know, it's like we got a C, and then you're going to, like, you know, a solid A to an A plus. For example, one of the villains where we haven't fought him yet, but I believe he's one of the final villains, is the character Monarch with his powered exosuit with all the details. It's really cool, and I almost wish he was a hero actually, but there's just a lot of variance in the game. Now, I kind of covered really those negatives about just, you know, the tutorial rulebook being a little bit scattered in my opinion, not flowing well. I'm going to talk about the flow of the game. Star Saga aims to be far more tactical than other games. And with regards to the tactical rules, I really actually like the front-facing and rear-facing rules. That's something that you don't see in other games and can provide an interesting advantage or disadvantage. But when combined with the fact that your character has to move and then act, which is a gigantic drawback to anyone that wants to engage with a terminal, keep up with the group. That being said, there are some counters. The fact that in most scenarios you only have to get 2 mercenaries to leave the map to win means someone can just kind of stay behind. But it does mean there could be a character that spends multiple turns just rolling dice, activating a terminal.
Or the same thing. I mean, if you have a villain right in front of you and you kill it, you're stuck there.
Yeah, unless you're a melee character. That's about the only characters that are able to really move and attack are ones that are focusing on close combat. Whereas to take advantage of, like, you know, that nice long range shot, it's like, oh, I'm going to shoot the security guard. I made my shot. I can't move. Now, if I'm mistaken, once again, guys and gals, let me know in the comments below, and I'll definitely update, or maybe we'll even, you know, play the game again and post an updated version of the video. But
I'm not sure he's going to get me to play this game again. I think you might have to get somebody else and get their opinion.
Well, but you're bringing on to something that I actually was thinking. I'm honestly wondering if this game, with just the Nexus AI cards and the fact that characters only get one action, would not be better as a solo game with the artificial Nexus. I almost feel that, based on the fact that you might only be taking 4 actions with 4 mercenaries, because that's the amount of mercenaries you can have per mission, it's really not that much per turn. It's not that difficult to manage, and could be a lot of fun. I'm almost wondering if maybe we're going to do our final thoughts or just my final thoughts. We'll see. I'll try to convince Julie to play it again. I will definitely be getting through the entire campaign. But you bring up a very good point. I think the game works better as a solo experience than a cooperative gameplay experience. If there was a Nexus player and we were working against another player that could be doing more, because the Nexus has 3 cards in their hand and multiple options, whereas the artificial Nexus, you're just flipping over cards, I think it would make a big difference. And please note, I know we didn't state it clearly, and I will have added something on the video that we are reviewing the cooperative version of the game. Now, what is good about this game? Well, actually, sorry, one other negative. Playing the artificial Nexus is also sort of a pain in the butt. The way that the mission books is structured is clearly designed for a human Nexus player. After having recently played Terminator, I definitely found that the way that is laid out in terms of being a cooperative dungeon crawler, also a sci-fi one, when we experience something, it's very quite clear. It's you get to a page that says, when this happens, do this. And you've got nice, clearly marked points, whereas with Star Saga, it's like, if this happens. So if you haven't really read ahead, it's easy for you to miss it when you're playing in the co-op version. And as Julie mentioned, I want to reiterate once again because I really hate it. Laying out the tiles because they're not lettered or numbered is a pain in the butt. We did it a little differently than we're supposed to. We laid out the entire map right away. We didn't fill the map, we just laid out the entire map so that we didn't waste time after we opened the door spending 5 minutes setting up a room. Now, do you have any positives that you want to say about the game? I know you didn't really have any positives that you added, but
well, you mentioned one about the tactical element of the front facing. I think that adds an added complexity that's interesting.
I like the characters as well. The characters, their abilities, and their feats is another really cool thing. But one thing that kind of also goes maybe a little bit in the negative, it almost feels like some characters are overpowered. I mean, the fact that playing Captain Erica Zelinsky with her triple shot and then having to pull a tactics card that lets me make 2 shots means if I'm not moving, I can pretty much almost annihilate a boss fairly easily and rack up a lot of XP in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the characters were interesting. Again, we're playing not really heroes. They're mercenaries, quote unquote bad guys. Honestly,
not really. We're actually, well, you haven't looked at the entire story, and I've read a little bit more about what's in the book, and that goes to another positive. The story and the world building is very well done, and I want to give Mantic props for really diving into the characters, giving them some backstory. A lot of them are fairly heroic. They're working as mercenaries because things that happened in their past, and what you're actually trying to recover in Star Saga is something that, as you read through the book, you kind of get an idea of what it is, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone, is going to be good for the whole galaxy.
So, unfortunately, I mean, this is one of these cases that this is not a game for me. So, I didn't have that many positives. Mm-hmm. I didn't really enjoy this game. It's cooperative. That's a good thing. But even then, I found that it's not a cooperative game where you really have to be cooperative. You don't have to work together, and I think the games that I like the most are the ones where we have to work together in order to achieve our goal. Because when you don't work together, it doesn't work. In this case, there's one mission, we work completely independently of each other.
I was opening the doors for you, but I mean, my character kind of just sat at a terminal, rolling dice, opening doors.
And your other character went off and did something, and then my character
I was basically covering the guy at the terminal. That's kind of what was going on, is you're moving through and I'm just like, pew, pew. But we're only getting one action. I really think the game would flow better with movement and action being available. I really didn't like it, and it feels, it feels very much tactical miniature style, which is fine. I get that's what they feel that they're going for, but I don't think it necessarily is the style that we really enjoy.
It's not my cup of tea.
With that being said, I think we've covered everything about the game. I do want to stress, though, that even though we didn't enjoy the game, I think both of us can see why some people may enjoy the game. And there are, we kind of harped a little bit more on the negatives because it wasn't for us, but there are enough good things that this isn't a game that I would put in like a failure category, and just, to talk to everyone a little bit about the ratings. When I think a game is something innovative, but in the end of the day fails, I give it like a 5 or less. And for me, I guess I'll go with mine. This is not a 5. This game is a 6. It does enough right that I can see exactly who it's going for. I don't think it excels with the cooperative mode, but I do think you maybe have a very interesting solo gameplay experience here. And I know you might be traveling a little bit in the near future, so maybe that'll be a good time for me to work through this and come back and give you guys and gals my final thoughts, and maybe even change my review score. But for right now, this game is a 6. Solid game for someone that likes tactical miniature games, a little bit more slower pace, but you're not really getting the best co-op out there. If you're looking for a sci-fi co-op now, Terminator. I mean, you didn't love that game, but I think you preferred that to this game. So Terminator is a good one, and definitely still our favorite, Imperial Assault. The fact that you're getting for under
my favorite is Descent.
No, I mean I said Imperial Assault because
you said
sci-fi.
our favorite.
I meant to say our favorite sci-fi one.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarifications. I would say Imperial Assault because you're getting 3 games in one. You're getting the skirmish mode, the one versus many mode, and the co-op with the app, and that's just having app managed co-op. I know isn't for everyone, but it's a plus for us. We find that app integration is good, whereas it didn't really work for us with Chronicles of Crime, and it's actually a cheaper price point, I think, in most cases compared to Star Saga.
So in my case, it is a 5, and I had no idea what Jason was going to say or rate it. But for me, I give my ratings, and I've said this before, for how I interact with the game and how I feel. And I'm hoping that people who are watching the channel and subscribing, when they're listening to me, they're figuring if they know somebody like me or they have the same taste as me, at least they can they can understand. So for me, it's a 5. It doesn't get the passing grade. It wouldn't get back on the table for me. I can understand, as Jason said, why some people might enjoy it. But if you've been listening to my commentary and you can identify with what I've said on other reviews, this one's a 5. I mean, it doesn't have the failures that we've had for others. I think Kick-Ass comes to mind.
Yeah, but we rated Kick-Ass a little higher than this game after we got it to work properly. Kick-Ass was primary failure of the rule book, whereas with this, it was mainly the flow. And
well, this one has a bunch. For me, it has too many things stacked up against it that makes it a 5. If it was just the rule book or just the tiles or just the fact that you can only shoot then move, move then shoot, there's too many things for me that work against it.
And I can totally understand that. And the one thing I want to highlight, just going back to things that you said and sort of just add some clarification for our viewers, you love the cooperative element. And the one thing I'll say about Kick-Ass the board game, it is cooperative, and there is no way for you to succeed without working together. And I can see why that would get a higher score from you compared to Star Saga, just because of the way you like to play games.
Yeah. So that's it. That's for me. I mean, I don't want to harp on it anymore. I don't want people getting upset at me for not liking the game. If you like it, tell us why you like it. But I respect the fact that some people will like it and that I don't. I'm not saying it's a horrible game. I'm just saying it's just not for me. I didn't enjoy it, and I don't plan on taking it back out.
No, I definitely plan on taking it back out. I will try to convince you, ladies and gentlemen, to go with me for one more ride through the Eris complex. Maybe we'll change our minds on the game, but so far it's missing that wow factor.
So I think we've gone around in circles enough. Now's the time to tell you guys not to forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Just please be nice. And on that note, there's going to be videos popping above. I think Jason said he was going to link to the Cyberbard. So
well, no, not on the pop-ups. That'll be down below in the video description, and you'll be seeing some links probably back to other sci-fi dungeon crawlers that we have reviewed recently.
So on that note, after a review like this, it's time to grab our drinks.
Yeah. Grab our best friend.
Okay, keep playing games.
Keep playing games. Kind of threw me off there with that. Well, I'm going to keep playing this one for sure. I want to make sure to go through everything. But one thing I did want to highlight is I was reading some stuff on Boardgame Geek, and it was fairly interesting because one person there was like, they said that they were going to get rid of the game, but the second wave shipped and they found that they started to like it more. I don't know if there's some stuff that's in the second wave that makes it better. We actually do have another Mantic game coming in the near future, and I think we'll like that one better. It's a theme that at least you know with the Hellboy game, so that'll be coming up hopefully in a couple weeks.
Okay.